I'm going to tell you about a crisis that millions of parents face, but almost nobody talks about. When your kids don't need you anymore, who are you? This isn't just about empty nest syndrome. This is about losing the identity you've built for 20 years or more. You wake up one morning and realize something terrifying. The person who needed you for everything now barely texts back. The schedule that defined your entire existence suddenly has gaping holes. And the role that gave you purpose, meaning, and direction has vanished almost overnight. This moment changes everything. And if you're not prepared for it, it can shake you to your core. Let me explain why this happens and what you can do about it. For most parents, the transition happens gradually at first. Your teenager starts driving themselves to activities. They make their own meals. They handle their own problems. Each small step feels like progress, like you're doing your job right. But nobody tells you that all these little steps are leading to something much bigger. Then comes the real shift. Maybe it's college move-in day. Maybe it's when they get their first apartment. Or maybe it's just a random Tuesday when you realize they haven't asked for your help in weeks. That's when the identity crisis hits hardest. Here's what makes this so devastating. You've spent 2 decades or more being needed constantly. Every decision revolved around your kids. Where you lived, what job you took, how you spent your weekends, even what you ate for dinner. Your identity became inseparable from being a parent. Psychologists call this role engulfment. It means your sense of self has merged completely with one role in your life. When that role changes or disappears, you experience what feels like a loss of self. And that's not an exaggeration. Brain scans show that parents going through this transition experience grief patterns similar to other major losses. But here's where it gets really interesting. This crisis doesn't affect everyone the same way. Research shows that parents who maintained other aspects of their identity throughout the parenting years handle this transition much better. They had careers they cared about. They had hobbies and friendships outside of parenting. They saw themselves as more than just mom or dad. The problem is that our culture makes this incredibly difficult. We celebrate parents who sacrifice everything for their kids. We praise the mom who gives up her career. We admire the dad who coaches every sport and attends every event. Society tells us that good parents put their kids first, always and completely. So when your kids no longer need that level of involvement, you're left wondering what happened to you. The career you put on hold might be impossible to restart. The friends you neglected have moved on. The hobbies you abandoned feel foreign now. You look in the mirror and don't recognize the person staring back. This is especially true for stay-at-home parents. They've dedicated every waking hour to raising kids. Their entire adult identity formed around parenting. When that ends, the void feels enormous. But working parents aren't immune either. Even with a career, many parents find that their sense of purpose and meaning came primarily from parenting. Now let's talk about what makes this transition even harder. Your kids are supposed to separate from you. That's healthy development. They're supposed to need you less, to build their own lives, to become independent. But knowing this intellectually doesn't make it easier emotionally. You might feel guilty for struggling with this. After all, wasn't this the goal? Didn't you raise them to be independent? Why does it hurt so much when they actually become independent? These conflicting emotions create a painful internal struggle that many parents suffer through in silence. There's also a gender component to this crisis. Mothers, especially those who stayed home or scaled back careers, often experience this more intensely. Society places enormous pressure on mothers to be everything to their children. When that intensive mothering is no longer needed or wanted, the identity loss can feel catastrophic. Fathers face different challenges. Many built their provider identity around supporting their kids. When kids become financially independent, or when they realize their kids don't need their advice or guidance anymore, it triggers a different kind of crisis. The strong protector role that defined them for decades suddenly has no clear purpose. So what actually happens during this transition? First, Therese, the practical reality. your daily routine changes dramatically. The constant demands on your time disappear. You have hours you didn't have before. For some parents, this feels like freedom. For others, it feels like emptiness. Then Therese, the emotional reality. You might feel a profound sense of loss. You might grieve for the relationship you had with your kids when they were younger. You might miss being needed, being important, being central to someone's life. This grief is real and valid, even though your kids are still alive and well. Many parents also experience relief mixed with guilt. They're relieved to have more time and freedom, but they feel guilty for feeling relieved. They think good parents shouldn't be happy about their kids leaving. This creates an emotional mess that's hard to untangle. There's also the relationship shift with your partner, if you have one. You've been co-parents for so long that you might have forgotten how to be partners. You might discover you have nothing to talk about besides the kids. Or worse, you might realize you've grown apart during the intense parenting years. Some marriages thrive after kids leave. Others fall apart. The friendship dynamics change too. If your social life revolved around kid activities, you might suddenly find yourself isolated. The other parents you saw at soccer games and school events aren't part of your life anymore. You need to build new social connections, but that feels daunting when you're already dealing with an identity crisis. Now here's the critical part. This transition can either destroy you or transform you. The difference depends on how you approach it. Parents who see this as an ending tend to struggle indefinitely. Parents who see this as a beginning tend to discover new aspects of themselves they never knew existed. So how do you navigate this successfully? First, acknowledge what's happening. Don't minimize your feelings or tell yourself you're being silly. This is a major life transition. It deserves attention and processing. Talk about it with people who understand. Join support groups. See a therapist if needed. Second, start exploring who you are beyond being a parent. This sounds simple, but it's actually quite difficult. You might not even know where to start. Think back to who you were before kids. What did you enjoy? What were you curious about? What dreams did you put on hold? Not all of those things will still fit, but some might. Third, resist the urge to fill the void by overparenting your adult children. This is a common trap. You still want to feel needed, so you insert yourself into their lives in ways that aren't helpful. You offer unsolicited advice. You try to solve problems they need to solve themselves. You call or text too frequently. This doesn't help them, and it doesn't help you. It just delays the necessary transition. Fourth, invest in your other relationships. Reconnect with your partner on a deeper level. Rebuild friendships that faded during the intense parenting years. Make new friends based on current shared interests rather than shared parenting responsibilities. These connections will become increasingly important. Fifth, pursue meaningful activities that have nothing to do with your kids. This might be a career pivot. It might be volunteer work. It might be creative pursuits or physical challenges. The key is finding something that gives you purpose and identity separate from parenting. Something that makes you feel competent and valuable. Sixth, redefine what being a good parent means at this stage. You're not abandoning your role as a parent. You're evolving it. Good parenting of adult children looks completely different from good parenting of young children. It's about being available without being intrusive. It's about offering wisdom without demanding it be followed. It's about supporting without controlling. Seventh, give yourself time. This transition doesn't happen overnight. You won't wake up one day with a fully formed new identity. It's a process that takes months or even years. Be patient with yourself. Allow yourself to feel uncertain and uncomfortable. That's part of growth. Eighth, consider this an opportunity for reinvention. You have potentially decades of life ahead. What do you want those decades to look like? This is your chance to design a life based on who you are now, not who you were 20 years ago. That's actually an incredible gift, even though it doesn't feel like one at first. Some parents discover passions they never knew they had. They start businesses, write books, travel extensively, go back to school, or dedicate themselves to causes they care about. They build identities that are rich and multifaceted. They become more interesting people, not despite their kids leaving, but because of it. Others struggle for years, unable to let go of their primary identity as a parent. They remain stuck, unable to move forward. They define themselves by their adult children's successes and failures. They live vicariously instead of living fully. This path leads to resentment, depression, and strained relationships with their kids. The difference between these outcomes often comes down to mindset. Do you see your worth as tied to being needed? Or do you see your worth as inherent? Do you believe your value comes from what you do for others? Or do you believe you have value simply by being yourself? These are deep questions that many people avoid their entire lives. But this transition forces you to confront them. And that confrontation, as painful as it is, can lead to profound personal growth. It can lead to a more authentic, fulfilling life than you've ever had before. Here's something else to consider. Your kids are watching how you handle this transition. They're learning from you about how to navigate major life changes. If you fall apart when they leave, you're teaching them that their independence hurts you. That's a heavy burden to place on them. But if you embrace this new chapter with courage and curiosity, you're showing them how to adapt and thrive. You're also modeling what healthy aging looks like. They'll face their own transitions and losses as they get older. How you handle yours gives them a template for handling theirs. This perspective can help shift your focus from what you're losing to what you're demonstrating. Let me be clear about something. Missing your kids is normal and healthy. Feeling sad about the end of an era is appropriate. This isn't about pretending you don't care or forcing yourself to be happy. It's about not letting those feelings consume your entire identity. It's about honoring the past while building a future. It's also about recognizing that your relationship with your kids isn't ending. It's changing. Many parents find that their relationships with their adult children become deeper and more meaningful than they ever were before. But that can only happen if you allow the relationship to evolve instead of trying to keep it frozen in time. The parents who thrive after this transition share some common traits. They're curious about life. They're willing to be uncomfortable. They don't need all the answers before they start exploring. They're open to new experiences and new versions of themselves. They practice self-compassion when they struggle. And they stay connected to a sense of purpose beyond any single role. They also tend to have developed these traits before their kids left. They didn't wait until the crisis hit to start building a multifaceted identity. They maintained interests and relationships throughout the parenting years, even when it was difficult. They saw themselves as individuals who happened to be parents, not just as parents. But even if you didn't do that, it's not too late. You can start now. Every day is an opportunity to explore who you are and who you want to become. Every day is a chance to build an identity that sustains you through this transition and beyond. So here's what I want you to take away from this. The identity crisis that comes when your kids no longer need you as a full-time parent is real, it's common, and it's significant. It's not something to dismiss or minimize. But it's also not something to fear. It's a natural part of the parenting journey and the human experience. This transition is challenging precisely because parenting is so important and meaningful. The depth of your struggle reflects the depth of your love and commitment. Honor that. But don't let it trap you in a role that no longer fits. Your kids need you to be okay without them. They need you to have a life that fulfills you. And you deserve that too. You are more than a parent. You always have been, even when parenting consumed most of your time and energy. Now you have the opportunity to remember that, to rediscover that, and to live that truth fully. It won't be easy, but it can be transformative. And on the other side of this transition is a version of yourself you haven't met yet. Someone who integrates all your experiences, including your parenting years, into a rich and complex identity. That person is worth discovering. That life is worth building. And this moment, as painful and disorienting as it feels, is your invitation to begin.